It's Rob Bowron with Sharp College Football, and there should be audio this time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm excited to talk about this. If this is your first time tuning in, the Saturday 6, we're going to run through 6 games for the coming week in college football from an advanced stats perspective. I'm really excited, I think, for this team. This week right here, it's the first week of college football. Of course, the headline says it all, the journey of 1,000 steps. It all starts here, really. We're going to whittle this down, figure out who's good, who's not, collect an enormous amount of data, which I guess if you're me, sounds really exciting. But this week there's like all weeks in college football. Well, maybe not all weeks, but like all weeks in early season college football. There's a handful of really good games. There's some games that on paper don't look good, which will turn out interesting, and I'm sure we'll all tune in for. And then there's like a bunch of games against Power 5 versus Group of 5, Power 5 versus FCS, Group of 5 versus FCS. They're likely less interesting, but they paid good money for those wins. It should be a really fun college football season, I think, in particular. I think the top end of college football, if you look over the last couple seasons, the distance between the very best teams in college football and merely the very good teams in college football has been quite large. Even in years like 2019, where you have a couple of really, really good teams in college football, the past couple seasons, like teams like Michigan, LSU really haven't had a chance to win haven't had a shot to win the national title. This season, I think they do. There's been some changes. Mike Bobo is the new offensive coordinator at Georgia. I don't think he's as good as his predecessor. Tommy Rees, I don't think Bill O'Brien did a great job, but Tommy Rees wouldn't have been my first call. I don't think he was Nick Saban's first call for that opening. I think that is going to put us in a position where the very best teams in college football are a little bit closer to the pack. And that should open up doors for teams that I think in a lot of ways haven't been in the conversation really for a national. I mean, they've been in the playoff conversation, but not in the, hey, I think they could actually win a playoff game, make it to the championship game, national, type conversation. And I mean, look, we've talked eventually somebody like TCU last year in that win over Michigan was going to have one of those really lucky games where the turnovers really break your way and you hold on and pull out the win. Of course, those kinds of things can and will happen in college football. But I think we could come into this season where teams like Michigan, LSU, you could talk about maybe Florida State, have a chance, I think, at the national championship, just because the offenses that have driven most of the separation between the very best teams and the very good teams, I think will likely have come back to earth. Now, there's a couple of teams you could talk about that might continue to put distance between themselves and others. Ohio State could put it together offensively, they haven't done it since 2019 under Ryan Day. Certainly, we could talk about Tennessee. If their defense improves a little bit, they have a history of putting up really big offensive numbers with Heupel. You could talk yourself into, of course, Texas if Sarkisian gets a quarterback that can play. Any of those teams, I think, have a lot of upside. They may not have the floor that you would talk about with the Michigan or Georgia, but they might have a higher ceiling with the offensive, with the guys calling the plays. Now, a lot of those guys are now head coaches and not just offensive coordinators. They're head coaches that call the plays. Those kinds of changes will make it hard. Staff changes lead to what we think of in college football as like the dissolution of a dynasty, right? Like the things that undermine college football dynasties are head coaches going off to the NFL and coordinator turnover. And now we have coordinator turnover, I think, in a significant way. In this case, that could affect the very best teams in college football again. I'm really excited, though. If this is your first time tuning into any of the videos here, this is going to be from an advanced stats perspective. We get data from the same folks that provide data to the College Football Playoff Committee and then, do some very fancy math on it. We're not going to talk about like points per game, yards per game, anything like that. Everything you see here is going to control for opponent, field position, and tempo. I think in particular in college football, there are so many teams of varying quality and so many units within those teams of even more varying quality that it's really important to control for opponent in college football when you're talking about statistics. I think tempo matters too, but and field position certainly matters. but it's really important to control for opponents. So having at the very least statistics to do that is critical. We're going to try to spend 5 minutes per game here. I have a timer. I don't always hit the timer, but we make an effort. I'm still a little rusty on the voice, but I got to get this out because some of these games are taking place tomorrow. Anyway, let's go ahead and hop in. I'm excited. So the first game pits LSU against Florida State. They played again. They played last season, of course, as well to kick off the year. Brian Kelly's your coach at LSU. Mike Norvell's your head coach at Florida State. There we go. Offensively, LSU's coached by Mike Denbrock. Defensively, FSU's coached by Adam Fuller. This LSU offense last season, I think, leaned into a lot of things that Jaden Daniels did really well. In some ways, Jaden Daniels is sort of the perfect prototypical Brian Kelly quarterback. Not a huge arm guy, not a guy with like a ton of downfield accuracy, but somebody that can, run when needed, execute the short passing game really well. They were at number 9 overall offensively last season. Now these numbers are scaled to the best offense in college football. As you can see, there's a sizable, like what I was talking about in the intro, there's a sizable gap between where LSU was offensively last year and where Georgia was offensively. That really matters. I think when we look here at the drive efficiency numbers overall for them, this is where they really struggled. Something that differentiates the best offenses from the very good offenses in college football is this drive efficiency number. It's your ability to sustain long drives and put up points even outside of explosives. They were number 9 overall in explosive drives. They were really good here. Number 12 in play efficiency. 8 in negative drives. They were really good at avoiding 3 and outs, at avoiding turnovers. No big run pass split here. Jaden Daniels had 68.6 completion percentage, 7.5 per. The only nitpick you have with this is that a lot of his passes were short. That 7.5 per tells you a lot there. Just not getting the ball as much downfield as other quarterbacks. Now that does play to his strengths. He's not the most accurate quarterback downfield. I think they'll continue to play within that, this season as well. It fits what Kelly wants to do already. Now, defensively, FSU has made significant progress under Adam Fuller. 26 is sort of like on the positive side of a middle-of-the-road Power 5 defense. They still have plenty of room for improvement. They have a lot coming back this year. Now, these numbers I should also point out that you're going to see here displayed are from last season because we don't have data on this season yet. Now, the numbers you see here were number 4 and number 6. Those are the projections coming into this year. Where FSU really struggled defensively last season was on drive efficiency. You could put together long drives for points against them. And that's something to keep an eye on here. They're gonna have to use the field to their advantage, try to slow down LSU and not give up points. Not give up long drives is critical for them. They did a decent job containing explosive drives, number 17, negative drives, number 12. This is probably where they shine the most, being able to force 3 and outs and turnovers. They did have a little bit of a run pass split, 33 in effective rush versus 24 in effective pass. Keep an eye on this here. I think you're going to want to see how well they contain LSU's running game. If LSU can run the football, they're going to do it here in this game. On the other side of the football, this offense really took off for Norvell last season, finishing at number 5 overall. Mike Norvell is mostly your play caller here. He does run his own system. He's an interesting guy offensively. They were number 14 in drive efficiency. They also have some headroom to potentially grow if this offense is going to get into the top 3, top 2 in college football and continue to make strides. They're going to need to improve their drive efficiency. That's more consistency, better play calling, better execution. Number 2 in explosive drives, though, they were excellent at putting up big plays last season. That's certainly something to keep an eye on. Number 14 in play efficiency. Number 6 in negative drives. They also did a really good job avoiding 3 and outs and avoiding turnovers. They were really good running the football. Number 5 in effective rush, but they weren't too bad throwing it either. Number 11 in effective pass. Jordan Travis was at 64% completion percentage, 9.1 per. I mean, sort of like an idea of comparing, Jordan Travis's completion percentage versus, the per versus to Jaden Daniels. You'd probably trade some of those completion percentage points for a little more down the field movement with the ball. Matt House is your defensive coordinator for LSU. They were at number 11 overall last season. Now, they also struggled with drive efficiency. They did a really good job containing big plays, but you could drive against this LSU defense. All these defensive metrics are scaled to the best offense in college football because it's an offensive game. Defense and offense are not equal. I want to give you an idea that if you put LSU up against Georgia's offense, LSU is going to give up some points. Pretty sure we saw that. They did a good job in explosive drives. They did a very good job at negative drives, forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers. They struggled a big bit. They have a big run-pass split here. They need to clean up the run defense. In particular, they were very good against the pass last season. That's going to be something to keep an eye on here. I'm really excited to see the matchup and see whose run defense actually may have improved. Might force the other quarterback to really have to win it against sort of the better passing defense here. Florida State does project to be better. A lot of it's going to depend on in this game whether the offense can, or whether the defense can take the strides forward that we are sort of projecting for it. We've got it as LSU with a 58% win probability and 2.33 favored. This is a really interesting game, of course, because we just found out that Cam Rising's not going to play. Kyle Whittingham's your coach for Utah. Billy Napier's your coach for Florida. Offensively, Utah it's amazing that Andy Ludwig, who's the offensive coordinator for Utah, got them in this position where they finished out the season at number 12 overall. They lost so many tight ends to injury, and the wide receivers at Utah have always been sort of hit or miss, a lot of miss. So in a lot of ways, they became very one-dimensional last season, including with Cam Rising's injury. They're number 27 overall in drive efficiency. They do need to be able to put together long drives and sustain them to put up points. Number 18 in explosive drives. They did a better job here. 19 overall in play efficiency, 10 in negative drives. This is what they did the best. They avoided 3-and-outs. They avoided turnovers, kept the ball moving. Helps you put up points. They were number 11 in effective rush versus number 30 in effective pass. That's really something to keep an eye on here. I mean, I think with the tight ends back, they should be able to throw the football a little bit more effectively. But they were really one-dimensional and still found ways to put up points last year. Going to be interesting to see in this game, I think, in particular. Now, Bryson Barnes is your quarterback in this game. And of course, like, this page has to reload where I had up his passing numbers because I didn't have space on my cheat sheet too. A crib sheet to put in his numbers. He had 60. He did attempt 57 passes last year, mostly not just in mopping up. 64.9% completion percentage, 7.5 per. Just something to keep an eye on. Like Utah, I mean, if you're going to want to slow down the Utah, offense, figure out where the tight end is. Try to figure out how to stop the run. Utah's offensive line play has improved significantly over the last couple seasons. Florida's defense has a new defensive coordinator. Austin Armstrong's your new DC. I think a pretty good get for them at the DC. He'd been at Southern Miss, and I thought he did a really good job, in particular considering all the crazy turnover they had done at Southern Miss. But this was not Patrick Toney was the defensive coordinator that came over with Billy Napier from Louisiana and had done a really good job at Louisiana, but they just couldn't take a step forward. This is the bad side of... No, I won't be able to do that this year. Maybe. I got to get to it. I work got really busy this year. Sorry, I had a question about totals. I got to get to it at some point. So 38 overall in beta rank. That's the bad side of Power 5 average overall. You could really drive against these guys. 77 overall in drive efficiency. They need to find ways to use the field to their advantage and not give up points. Really good at explosive, comparatively, let's not kid ourselves. Better at explosive drives, number 34 there, containing big plays. They did a really good job comparatively, though, at negative drives, forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers. Their problem, and the one to sort of keep an eye on here, is they were pretty good against the run, which is where you want to be against Utah when you get their backup quarterback. But they were not very good against the pass. 64 in effective pass. Utah's going to need their pass catchers to be effective in this game. Keep an eye on Barnes. If Utah's probably going to try to, Florida's probably going to try to take away the run game as much as possible, force Utah to beat them in the air. And again, keep an eye on the tight ends. That's where the action will be with Utah. Offensively, Florida was better last season, certainly, than their defense. Now, Billy Napier's your play caller here. Number 15 overall in beta rank. They struggled a little bit with drive efficiency. 36 overall, certainly something they could improve on. 14 in explosive drives. They did a pretty good job putting up big plays to put up points. Now, they were at number 14 overall at negative drives. They did a good job avoiding 3-and-outs, avoiding turnovers. This just speaks to an offense that wasn't all that consistent most of the season. 37 in effective pass, though. That one really strikes me as interesting. Graham Mertz is your new quarterback here. He completed 57.3% of his passes last season at Wisconsin, 7.5 per. He's hoping for a renaissance. Let's put it that way with Florida. Billy Napier likes to key off the run, though, so I think it'll be interesting to see how much they use the pass in this game. They might be smart too, because Utah's defense is pretty good, number 17 overall in beta rank. Morgan Scalley is your defensive coordinator. They did a decent job at drive efficiency, number 24, 5 overall. They usually did find ways to get off the field and avoid giving up points. They were a little susceptible to big plays, though, number 33 overall here. They did an excellent job at negative drives, forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers. This was really their bread and butter. Keep an eye on them. They're a green dog team. What is a green dog team? If the back doesn't go out, if it's a pass play and the back doesn't go on a route, the linebacker is going to blitz once he confirms the back's not going out on a route. Utah had a really good run defense last season. That's something to keep an eye on here, of course. Should give that and Mertz is not Anthony Richardson, who's going to give you problems running the football. Utah, however, was a little leaky on the back end in the pass defense last season. Clark Phillips isn't back. That is a little bit you should have some questions about this Utah pass defense. It'll be interesting to see if Utah is able to force Florida to throw, and if they do, how does that go? Utah's got a 67% win probability here. 4.78 is what we have them as the favorite on. We have it projected even closer than Vegas. This game is at Utah. It should be a pretty close game. But Barnes is not totally inexperienced, and he's been thrown into some big games before. I think it'll be really interesting to see this game. This one's tomorrow night. This one's an under-the-radar fun game, I think, this season, in this early season. We're going to find out a lot about, one, a surprise team for last season in Duke, and two, where Garrett Riley has this Clemson offense. So, of course, Dabo Sweeney and Mike Elko are your coaches here. Mike Elko did a phenomenal job in his first season with Duke. Offensively, last season, Clemson struggled quite a bit. They've got a new offensive coordinator in, of course, Garrett Riley from TCU, trying to shake things up. I think it was probably the best offensive coordinator hire of the offseason. Really smart move by Dabo to go out and get his guy. Like we talked about, not everybody went out and got somebody that was probably tops on their list when they got somebody. What Clemson did pretty well last year actually was drive efficiency. They were able to put together long drives to put up points. They were fairly consistent there. They struggled at putting up big plays. They just couldn't put together big plays. That hampered this offense. Number 53 overall there. 47 at negative drives. Just too many 3-and-outs, too many turnovers. A little bit of a run pass split here. 34 in effective rush, 42 in effective pass. They haven't run the ball all that well. I know all the blame has gone on the quarterbacks. I don't think it's really been the quarterback, DJU. I think the problems go deeper than that, hence why you have a new offensive coordinator in place. Cade Klubnik is your new quarterback, 61.1% or 61% completion percentage, 7.0 per. Those got to get a lot better. That's not a great, that's a decent completion percentage by modern college football standards. That is a terrible getting the ball down the field, 7.0 per yards per attempt. Those have to significantly improve for them. Now, Duke's defense last season, the Tyler Santucci is your defensive coordinator. Mike Elko, of course, is your headliner here on defense. They made significant strides. This is still a bad Power 5 defense, but they made significant strides off of where they were last year. I expect them to improve a bit again, just because I think the coaching is so good. 47 overall in drive efficiency. You could put together some drives for points against them. They did an okay job preventing explosive drives. That's something they're also going to have to improve. It would certainly help if they were able to force more 3-and-outs and more turnovers, improve that negative drives number. They have a pretty big run pass split here. 37 in effective rush versus 75 in effective pass. That's something to keep an eye on. They are vulnerable, or at least were last year. If you could throw the football around, it'll be interesting to see where this where this goes with this, and what Clemson's able to do. I think Duke is at least a passable enough opponent. And I think they could get up into the 40s this season on defense. It'll at least tell us like Clemson should be able to, with Riley, if things are clicking, be able to pretty handily put up points on Duke still, even though Duke is a reasonable facsimile of an early season opponent. Other side of the football should be fun too. I really like what Kevin Johns has done as this offensive coordinator. Duke, he came over from Memphis. They're at 33 overall in beta rank last season. That's huge improvement. 33 in drive efficiency. They did a really good job sustaining drives to put up points. 46 overall in explosive drives. This is a number they could certainly improve on as well. They were 39 in negative drives, a few too many turnovers, a few too many 3-and-outs. Riley Leonard's back as your quarterback, and they were decent throwing the football. 40 overall in effective pass, 35 in effective rush, pretty balanced. Riley Leonard had a 63.8 completion percentage, 7.2 per. You want to get your quarterback closer to the 65, and pushing 8, closer to 8.5. On getting the ball down the field. I think for Riley Leonard, they'll with his experience coming back and comfort in the system, I think they will try to improve that explosive drives number in particular. It'll be interesting to see because this Clemson defense is really good. Their offense might benefit from some short field in this game because their defense, has been pretty good. Wes Goodwin's your defensive coordinator here. Number 9 overall on defense. They did a really good job at drive efficiency, using the field to their advantage, finding ways to get off the field and not give up points. They did a good job. I mean, again, these are scaled to where the offensive numbers are. I want to give you guys an idea. Like if Clemson went up against Georgia's offense, which was the most explosive offense in college football last year, they were going to give up some big plays. That's just the way it works. Even though they were number 15 overall. They did a really good job in negative drives as well. Forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers, excellent work. Bit of a run pass split here. Number 7 in effective rush versus number 18 in effective pass. That's something to keep an eye on. If you're Duke, you may want to be able to see if you can make some hay throwing the football around in this game. It's where Clemson was more vulnerable last year, certainly. Something to keep an eye on here from the game plan. Clemson has a 69% win probability on the road, and they're favored in the model by 5.5, 5.61. The Battle of the Carolinas. I don't know. There's other Carolinas as well. There's the coastal version. All right. Shane Beamer's your head coach for South Carolina. Mac Brown's your head coach for North Carolina. Offensively, South Carolina has struggled a little bit. Dow Loggins is your new offensive coordinator for them. Their offensive coordinator got hired away, which I've found surprising. I didn't think he was doing that great of a job. Offensively, they're at number 56. They were number 56 overall at drive efficiency last season. They struggled to put together drives to put up points. A little better in big plays, 21 on explosive drives, 45 in play efficiency. Their ability to put up yards outside of explosives wasn't great. Their yards per play. And 52 in negative drives. Too many 3-and-outs, too many turnovers. A huge run pass split. They did not run the ball very well at all last season. 70 in effective rush versus 18 in effective pass. I think it really does. I mean, like the offense hasn't been great, but Spencer Rattler still has been largely good. I think in particular, given the talent around him, I still think it's him going to South Carolina is one of the most surprising and perhaps poor choices that anyone's made in the NIL era. Although, like he didn't end up at Rice eventually. So I guess there's that, but I hope he was considerably rewarded in NIL money for going to South Carolina, because going to be in this offense with who they've hired year in, year out, and with a supporting cast, maybe wasn't the best idea. But he should have a good game here, because holy moly, North Carolina with Mac Brown has struggled on defense. Gene Chizik is your defensive coordinator. They were horrendous under Gene Chizik last season. 92 overall in beta rank, 100 in drive efficiency. This is, I mean, like you should grade Power 5 teams last season on a 1 to 65 scale. yeah, that's really bad. You're at 92. 100 overall in drive efficiency. You can put together long drives, put up points against them. 96 explosive drives. Big plays are there for the taking. Not great in negative drives either. Their best number is the least important of the 4 core beta rank metrics. In play efficiency, not a real big run pass split. I mean, they were a little more effective against the pass than they were against the run. Now, Spencer Rattler, 66.2 completion percentage, 7.6 per. I think a good thing for them in particular, if they can continue to, like, you'd like to see not only that completion percentage, you'd like to see him get the ball down the field a bit more. That would speak to better supporting cast and play calling. Plus, he could use some support from the running game. In particular, because Beamer's guys that he's hired as offensive coordinators are really not pass first guys. So them not having a running game limits how creative these guys are going to be able to be, because they're not naturally throw the ball first with Spencer Rattler as your quarterback kind of guys. Flip it around to the other side of the football. This should be pretty interesting. Phil Longo's gone, of course, to Wisconsin. Chip Lindsey's your new offensive coordinator for North Carolina. I do like Clayton White, who's the defensive coordinator for South Carolina, but they have to continue to show progress and hope to make even more progress this season than they have. Offensively last season, North Carolina struggled a little bit with drive efficiency. They were kind of middle of the Power 5. They weren't consistent. Now this is, under Phil Longo, they tend to be much more explosive than they are efficient. So keep an eye on this. This will change, right? Like Chip Lindsey's not running the all home runs offense like Phil Longo was. But they struggled with big plays last season. 24 in play efficiency, 31 in negative drives, just too many 3 and outs, too many turnovers. Now, Longo the year before had been really good. I mean, even though he's got the air raid background, he had been really good at running the football. Last year, they depended very much on the run, of course, with the depleted running back room. It'll be interesting to see here. Drake May is your quarterback, 66.2% completion percentage, 8.4 per. This South Carolina defense, they were a pretty bad Power 5 defense. 52 overall in beta rank, 64 in drive efficiency. They were at 52 in explosive drives. I mean, you could put together long drives. You could find big plays. They were a little bit better at negative drives, forcing 3 and outs, forcing turnovers. They're going to need to make significant progress, particularly stopping the run. That was the real problem last year. 78 overall in effective rush versus 29 in effective pass. I think it'll be really interesting to see if Lindsey tries to exploit that. We're going to find out a lot. If South Carolina is going to make a jump on defense, they're going to need to be better against the run. North Carolina should be good enough, I think, you're not gonna sit back there and ask Drake May to beat you, because he might. They're gonna have to, North Carolina is gonna probably probe them to see if they're gonna be able to run the football like nearly everyone else could against South Carolina last season. South Carolina is the favorite here, 58% win probability. 2.33 is what we have them favored by. This is an interesting Big Ten matchup early in the season. Matt Rule's your new head coach at Nebraska. PJ Fleck is still at Minnesota. Offensively for Minnesota, it'll be interesting. You've got some internal promotions. You've got Greg Harbaugh and Matt Simon splitting play calling. I'm not sure. They weren't exactly clear on who is calling plays precisely, so we'll figure that out. The Gophers' offense last season, I believe under Kirk Ciarrocca, I think he was back for his last hurrah. 38 overall in beta rank. That's on the wrong side of average for Power 5 offense. They struggled a bit with drive efficiency. Struggled to put together long drives and put up points. 39 overall in explosive drives. They did an okay job here. Relatively speaking to some of their other numbers. They could certainly be both more explosive and more efficient coming into the season. Negative drives, too many 3 and outs, too many turnovers, too much shooting yourself in the foot for them. They last season really struggled to throw the football. They were at 15 overall in effective rush. That's unsurprising, I think, for either Minnesota or Fleck. But they really struggled to throw the football in a way that maybe you wouldn't expect under Fleck after that, the big season that they had when Ciarrocca was there for the first go round. They could really throw the football around. They could not throw the football around last season at all. Ethan Kaliakmanis is your projected starting quarterback. 54% completion percentage, 8.5 per. That's in very limited time, not as a starter. Really only playing in mop-up. He's going to have to improve that completion percentage, of course. Now, defensively for Nebraska, Tony White's your defensive coordinator. I like this hire. He comes out of the Rocky Long School with the 3-3-5. I believe he was last at Syracuse. Syracuse hired Rocky Long. That's the most out of left field hire I can imagine. Is getting Rocky Long to leave San Diego or Albuquerque to come to Syracuse, New York. Which is a great hire, by the way, too. Nebraska struggled defensively last season. Significant fall off from the prior year when they were actually really good defensively. They really struggled with drive efficiency. You could put together long drives to put up points on them. For Minnesota, that's what you're really hoping for here. In particular if you gaze down to that effective rush number. Nebraska was a bit better at avoiding big plays, 41 overall, and containing explosive drives. They struggled at negative drives, forcing 3 and outs, forcing turnovers. Like I said, they have a huge run pass split here. Not what you want when you're about to face Minnesota. Struggled last season to stop the run. They were decent stopping the pass. I think if you're Minnesota, you're going to hand the ball off till Nebraska forces you not to. Flip it around to the other side of the ball. Well, who do we run into? South Carolina's old offensive coordinator. Now, Matt Rule's never hired himself much of an offense. Let's put it that way. This is not a surprising hire for Matt Rule. Marcus Satterfield is your offensive coordinator for Nebraska. They finished at 69 overall last season, which is nice, but not good. 62 in drive efficiency, struggled to put together long drives to put up points. As I recall, did they end up? They did. They ended up, I'm forgetting the guy's name that came over from Pitt. I said he was bad, and they hired him anyway. A Pitt offense from the year before, 2 years ago, wasn't all it was cracked out to be. There was a lot of points put up against really bad teams. 62 overall in drive efficiency, 70 in explosive drives. They struggled to put up big plays. Their best number is the least important of the core 4 beta rank metrics, 32 overall in drive efficiency. So congratulations on your yards per play outside of explosives. 73 in negative drives, too many 3 and outs, too many turnovers. No big run pass split here. It's going to be interesting. Jeff Sims of Georgia Tech, and I'm sure he's glad just to be out of Georgia Tech, and that feels like never-ending rebuild. 58.3% completion for 3-5. Can't read my handwriting. 58% completion percentage, 5.9 per last season. Of course, he'd like to improve both of those considerably. Now, the under-the-radar good unit in this game is Minnesota's defense. Joe Rossi's your defensive coordinator. They've been sneaky pretty good these last 2 seasons. 22 overall in beta rank last year. 22 in drive efficiency, doing a good job using the field to their advantage and finding ways to get off the field. 18 in explosive drives, limiting big plays. They did a really good job in negative drives, forcing 3 and outs and forcing turnovers. I know it's 41 overall, but their number's not bad. It's something they could certainly improve on as well. No big run pass split, 25 overall in effective rush, 27 in effective pass. I'm going to be interested to see sort of where Nebraska's offense shakes out. Like I said, Matt Rule, his Baylor teams were defense first, last, and always. Not great offensive teams. He's not known as hiring great offense. Marcus Satterfield, but I guess we should be fair. It's not like Nick Saban or Kirby Smart went out and got their first choice as offensive coordinator either. Kind of a tough year to have an OC vacancy, I think. Anyway, this game should be interesting. We're going to get our first look at Rule. I think it's going to be interesting to see where this Minnesota offense shakes out, because I think this Rossi-led defense has been consistent enough that if the offense takes a step forward, Minnesota could be kind of a fun, interesting team in the Big Ten West. I forgot to mention, it's Minnesota 63% win probability, 3.44. This is a really fun game. UTSA versus Houston, Jeff Traylor, Dana Holgerson. Offensively, Justin Burke is your offensive coordinator for UTSA. New offensive coordinator in place, replacing Will Stein. They were really good last season for a group of 5 team, 31 overall in beta rank. Number 58 in drive efficiency, but where they shined the most was in explosive drives, 30 overall in explosive. Mother Lord, 30 in explosive drives, putting up big plays. Not too many turnovers and 3 and outs. There were 25 overall in drive efficiency. They have a pretty decent run pass split, 50 in effective rush versus 21 in effective pass. Frank Harris is your returning quarterback, one of the most exciting quarterbacks outside. One of the most exciting quarterbacks, I think, outside of the Power 5 in all of college football. Frank Harris, 69.6 completion percentage, 8.6 per. Those are fun numbers. This UTSA offense is very fun. Now, Houston's defense fell off the map last season under Doug Belk. They actually had been kind of carrying Holgerson's offenses in his first couple of years. Flipped last season, and the offense was a lot better, and the defense fell off the map. 100 in beta rank. Now, Houston was technically a group of 5 team last year. That's not a terrible number for a group of 5 team, but I think for Houston's aspirations and now joining the Big 12, that's not great. 75 in drive efficiency. You could definitely put together long drives to put up points. Their worst, though, was you could put up big plays against them. 103 in explosive drives. They did a decent job outside of explosive containing yards per play, but not enough 3 and outs, not enough turnovers. They really, really struggled last year. I think in particular compared to prior seasons. The 93 in effective rush, 107 in effective pass. No real big split here to keep an eye on. I think it's going to be interesting because, I mean, is how much improvement we can expect to see. I mean, they definitely seasoned in some young players at Houston. Doug Belk has a background at Houston of putting together really good defenses that have really helped carry the team. How much improvement can we expect? I'd be surprised if they were this bad again this season, but getting from 100 back to where they were is probably too big of a jump. Getting from 100 maybe to the 60s would be an immense improvement year over year, I think, for them. Flip it over to the other side of the football. Houston last season was good offensively with Clayton Tune at quarterback. Holgerson's your play caller here. 26 in drive efficiency. They did a really good job comparatively of putting together long drives to put up points. They were good at explosive drives. They put up a lot of big plays. Now, they did suffer a little bit, in particular, 3 and outs and turnovers, negative drives, number 37. That's really something for them to look to improve on. Unsurprisingly, with Holgerson, you have a big run pass split, 71 in effective rush versus number 9 in effective pass. And I think that's maybe the thing to keep an eye on here. Donovan Smith is in from Texas Tech, transferred in. It feels like everybody played at Texas Tech last season. He was really up and down. He had moments of pure brilliance and he had moments of just absurd turnover prone badness. But 66.1 completion percentage last season, 6.8 per. You'd like to see him, and I think be able to get more out of the yards per attempt than he got last season. I do think that he could do really good things in this offense. When he's good, he is really good, and this offense can be a lot of fun. It's going to be I think Holgerson may have gotten himself a good enough quarterback to make things interesting at times this season, but Smith, who is also incredibly athletic, is just going to need to cut down on the bad plays. Defensively, this is a pretty good number for a group of 5 defense. Jess Loeb? God, I can't read my own handwriting. How embarrassing. Is your defensive coordinator. My apologies to UTSA's defensive coordinator, whose name can't read in my own handwriting. 82 in drive efficiency. You could put together some long drives against them to put up points. 68 in explosive drives. They did a better job here limiting big plays. 70 in negative drives. Decent job forcing 3. Good Lord. Forcing 3 and outs, forcing turnovers. Not a big run pass split here. I think what's interesting is this is a good enough group of 5 defense, and they have some potential to maybe improve this season to at least tell us a bit about where Houston is, right? Like, both of these defenses are pretty bad. Both of these offenses are going to be able to likely come in and put up a lot of points. I think what's going to, we're going to learn some things about where Donovan Smith is coming into this year, and do we mostly get the good Donovan Smith or the bad? I mean, although he tended to do he tended to do it in streaks. There were some games that just got away from him. And some when he was quite good. So I'm interested to see where these defenses shake out. It's going to tell us a lot about where these teams are going to go this season. UTSA, I think, if the defense were to take a step forward, has real sky high potential as far as the group of 5 goes. And Houston, you know, like I would say outside of Central Florida, most of the newcomers coming into the Big 12 have a pretty rough slate projected in front of them. They've struggled a little bit compared to where the Big 12 quality, the quality of the Big 12 has been at the last couple seasons. Houston, I think, has an opportunity, if they can keep the offense going and maybe get the defense to take a step forward, to have a less hard landing and maybe even a reasonable bowl eligible landing if they can put it together. It'll be interesting to see. We've got UTSA favored in this game, 65% win probability, 4.17. That's it. That's the end of this first run at this. So, thank you for tuning in. I will get the projections out. I will update Beta Rank every Sunday morning during the college football season, usually before 9 a.m. You can find this at our YouTube channel, which you're probably watching on anyway. What other housekeeping notes? I'm traveling next week for work. I will be in LA, so I will not get to the Saturday 6 till probably Thursday or Friday. So it'll be a little bit later next week. But again, I'm really excited for this season. We're going to learn a lot about college football over the next couple weeks in particular, as we actually get some real data on these games. I can stop hearing people and seeing people saying crazy stuff in the off season. I'm always excited for that. Let's go ahead and end it. Because I don't have much more to say. You can find all the stats you just saw and a whole lot more at sharpcollegefootball.com. You can find me at BetaRankFB or at Sharp College Football. We have a Pac-12 podcast at 12 Pack Radio. You can find all the back episodes of that at sharpcollegefootball.com/12 Pack Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you later next week. And yeah, Beta Rank will be updated again Sunday morning.